take another look. Let's fight for change. IT, take another look. You'll feel the same. IT, take another look. We started from the bottom, trying to reach to the top. It's l'union fait la force. We learn that from the start. No matter what we go through, come together as people. We've done it all before. This be another sequel. From DC way back then, been doing a damn thing. Tell it Lakay, yeah, we back doing the same thing. Many of us disasters done left the country shook. We can't put it back together. Come take another look.
Haiti, take another look.
This mask can save your life. This one too, temporarily. With this mask, you can breathe when you choose to. With this one, you don't have that luxury until you stop breathing. Which mask would you rather wear? Your choice.
Good evening and welcome to Télé Lakay. I'm your host, Jimmy Jacques. My guest tonight is Ms. Carmelle Cadet, founder and CEO of EMTECH and a passionate advocate of blockchain and digital currency technology for payment modernization and financial inclusion efforts. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We'll be right back.
J Beats. Oh my God, it's another one. Oh my God.
Belle souris, belle bouche, souris ange. Les gauches elles marchent fort garçon pour pas rêler.
Oh my God.
L'elle peut la rue, toute femme jaloux, toute net prêtise. Il décontrôle, les femmes dingues, les femmes frises.
Oh my God, femme ça son mission impossible. Oh my God, femme ça fait femme tout nos groupies. Oh my God, got jeune bébé ça la game nan koui. Oh my God, l'arrivée family existence toute fille. Oh my God, les laps marché sans exagérer à terre à fond en deux. Oh my God, et puis le garden, tous ces lunes comme mieux désactivé. Oh my God, les livres parlés, c'est plus belle mélodie que moi pas j'entendais. Oh my God, oh oh oh,
Yo.
oh mon Dieu, oh my God, oh oh oh,
Yo,
oh my God.
c'est pas n'importe qui femme, les gars sont femmes frères. C'est pas femme sans caractère, les gars sont femmes fières. Les belles, les sentis bons, les gars sont femmes frères. C'est Louis Vuitton, Prada, Mike Coco sont femmes chères. Les femmes viennent romantiques, même si m'son nèg qui a ses radis. Elle prend la rial, by bloc qui spin mal comme Maserati. Les moelles sentis m'ta, bagay assez radis. Les femmes viennent pas boucher, pas chat, pas caponner, pas chat. Nous fait l'amour sous ou fou et pas chat. Ça le fait m'valider, que des sexes à l'idée. Comme ça gauche elle campé, mais nous t'as dit c'est à l'idée. Gauche elle touche, m'y fait m'rêler. Oh my God. Gauche elle caresse, m'y fait m'rêler. Oh my God. Même là elle fait cleffer les pieds de feu. Oh my God. Son femme totale, femme la caille. Là où elle en sel mot cadi. C'est oh my God.
Les laps marché, sans exagérer à terre à fond en deux. Oh my God, et puis le garden, tous ces lunes comme mieux désactivé.
My guest tonight is Ms. Carmelle Cadet. Born in Haiti, Carmelle is the founder and CEO of EMTECH, a fintech company helping central banks in emerging markets to modernize their financial market infrastructure. Carmelle is a passionate advocate of blockchain and digital currency technology for modernization, financial inclusion, and economic development efforts. In her 10-year career at IBM, Carmelle led the global business development efforts for the digital currency segment in IBM blockchain. Through EMTECH, Carmelle is on a mission to transform the financial market infrastructure with modern central bank platforms, digital currency systems, and artificial intelligence. This enables regulators to have modern tools to effectively manage digital currency payment solutions. Let's please welcome to Télé Lakay, Ms. Carmelle Cadet.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure having you. It's a pleasure having you. Where are you, Carmelle, may I ask? Where are you now?
I am currently in Accra, Ghana.
Where?
I'm in Ghana.
Oh, you are in Ghana. All
Yes,
right.
in
Very
Accra.
good. Very good. Very in Accra. Okay. Carmelle, before we begin our conversation, could you please tell our audience how was your upbringing in Haiti like, and what did you miss the most?
Oh, so many things. But yes, I was born and raised in Haiti. Did all my early years up until high school. So I went from to Collège Marianne, which is a very popular uh, Catholic all-girls school. And then, due to political reasons, my family migrated to the U.S. But my upbringing was one that I have a greater appreciation for now, especially living in the U.S. Being exposed to a better life in the U.S. is something that I will forever be grateful for.
Hmm.
But I definitely miss the beaches. I miss the weekend trips to go to Waube.
Yes.
That was a family thing to do, and manger lambi, and in Haiti
All the
there's no
good stuff, huh?
and the prestige even when you were younger,
Yes. Of course.
the bubble
Good,
food,
good, good, good prestige.
good prestige, good
How was
vibes.
your education in the U.S. And why did you get into your field?
Yeah, so I migrated to the U.S. When I still had a couple years of high school left, so I finished my high school in the U.S. and then got jobs after high school. Got into banking. I started my kind of job. My first job in banking was a drive-through teller, and then kind of moved around a little bit. Stayed in Florida for quite a bit. Built a career in banking around retail banking, and then made my way up to mortgage underwriter. So that banking was my field, but at the time I was working for IBM Credit Union. And the funny story around that is doing mortgages. I used to see, the pay stubs and the earnings, and I said, "Man, I have to go work for this company because they're making a lot of money over there." And then I got lucky. Actually, a fellow Haitian that was part of my sorority group in college told me about this program and said, "Well, if you want to work for IBM, there's this internship program that's happening, and it's very competitive, but you should apply." I don't know why. I decided to throw my name in and got selected and got an internship at IBM. Then got recruited for a full-time job. And I did not know, and I think it's important to say that because when you're in college, sometimes you don't know what you want to do,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And so I changed my majors a couple times and wasn't sure really what I wanted to do. But then when I got the internship at IBM, they placed me in corporate finance. And I said, okay, I can actually do this. So graduated and got my bachelor's in finance and then spent 10 years at IBM doing that. I did corporate finance, understanding how to sell software, how to sell technology around the world. Amazing experience for me. Traveled, did a month in China for IBM doing audit stuff, and then came back and got a great opportunity to get into blockchain at the same time. So that's how I
Okay.
got.
That's how you spent 10 years with IBM.
I did
Yeah.
in
What
New
were some
York.
of the lessons that you learned being with IBM?
IBM is, I think, for many purposes, I mean, was a great company to have a career in order to explore what you want to do, and also being exposed to certain things to a global market that sometimes is not always available in every job. So I tell people I spent 10 years at IBM, but I had probably 4 or 5 different careers because it's such a big company and there's so many ways of being placed. You can do finance, you can do business, you can do sales, you can work for a particular geography, you can work global, you can go to corporate, you can go to the line. And IBM acquired a lot of companies, so you get to see a lot of innovation. And I really got a sense to how to manage that, and it was great. One thing that I'm very grateful for at IBM is the mentorship that is part of the culture. So when
Okay.
I joined IBM, they placed me with mentors, and I hung on to that. I really hung on to that, and I'm a child of mentorship.
And
I
that
love
helped you along the way.
that helped me tremendously. That helped
Hmm.
me tremendously. There are certain times you kind of get into some jobs you thought you wanted to do, it wasn't the right way, wasn't the right thing for you. And I've gone through those experiences too, and talking to mentors, having people to reach out to kind of pull you out and get you through some tough time. That's been my experience, and I'm very grateful for that.
Very good. Carmelle, now here you are. You're a black woman who is very much involved in the corporate America. You are climbing the ladder of success. What were some of the difficulties that you encountered along the way?
You know, because I came from Haiti, actually a dream that I had when I joined IBM is to bring IBM to Haiti. I remember 2 years in, they sent us to this training program, and one of the exercises was to draw kind of a aspirational, where do you see yourself 10 years later at IBM? And then I remember someone is supposed to mail this to you, and you're not supposed to open it until 10 years later. So my drawing at the time was the Haiti map. And with a light bulb on top of it that talks about innovation.
Okay.
And fast forward, and sure enough, I only spent 10 years at IBM. I don't know if it was time. My husband told me he thinks it was time, but the timing came as I thought about it. But that was, at the time, I thought that would be something that would be interesting. And, emerging markets is not something that is easy for corporates, and making the case internally to focus on the markets like Africa, to focus on the markets like the Caribbean, was very difficult from a business case perspective. And that's something that I found difficult in the company. And I think it's a truly business decision. I get it. I used to be the finance director. I get why, but I couldn't get through as far as what the opportunity is. And so I left and I started my own shop to try to do that.
And now we're going to talk about EMTECH, your company.
Yes.
What is EMTECH, Carmelle?
And so really tied to, again, making the case for emerging markets. I wanted to, when I left EMTECH, I did not have all the answers. I had a feeling, I had a gut moment that says this is the time for me to do this, and that the opportunity was going to open up. And the reason I got into the space is because there's a technology called blockchain that became very popular and was becoming more and more on our radar. And the moment I heard about it, I said, this is it. This is how we solve financial inclusion in emerging markets, because the technology does not require any company or any intermediary for you to have a basic digital mean of finance, mean of money. And for me, that I always understood that the corporate business model made it very difficult to make a farmer in Leogane attractive as a client to a bank. And
correct.
At the same time, they don't have a lot of money, but they transact a lot. And the little bit of money that they do a lot of production. And what can they do producing locally, and how can we turn that into riches again, as we used to know back in the day? So that's something that I wanted to solve. And so EMTECH got set up as a technology company to really help the central banks and emerging markets, Africa and the Caribbean specifically, on how to use technology to try to address this problem.
Currencies are very, very topical at the moment. I always think that Facebook Libra is probably the one that escalated this conversation with some of the regulators, and some of the regulators who were relatively complacent in the space, or I should say the central banks who were relatively complacent in the space, seems to be looking at the concept of digital currencies far more actively since the Facebook Libra announcement was made. So I'm very excited to welcome Carmelle to the stage, and she's going to be specifically talking about digital currencies and how we can use these as a regional payment system across Africa. So please welcome her up. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is a great opportunity. This is my first time at Blockchain Africa Conference, and I know a few of you are vets, so happy to join you. I am getting ready to talk about something that's very hot at the moment, but I have one rule, or maybe two. No eggs and no tomatoes thrown at the stage, please, because I know I'm at a Bitcoin conference, and I'm coming in to talk about how central bank digital currencies can also solve some big problems. So allow me to do that, because I think the conversation that we've had so far, when we think about central bank digital currencies, it's in the context of Bitcoin. It's in the context of an asset, and thinking about how can it be decentralized, distributed, and how do we move away from centralized government and monetary authority. For once, I am a big believer of cryptocurrencies. I own Bitcoin and several other coins, so my portfolio is really bad right now. But the idea of having alternative assets like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that are borderless by design, that don't carry biases like other form of money and other sources of means of exchange have today when it comes to the banking sector, for example, are greatly appreciated, right? But I think as players and as participants of the ecosystem, I think we have a responsibility, or at least I feel a responsibility, to be honest and thinking about what are the limitations of Bitcoin, and also highlighting the unique values of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies.
How do you provide inclusion to everyone, regardless of how much money they make, regardless of where they live, regardless of the level of education that they have? How can you reach them where they are and being able to have that economic power? And that's what we do. So we work with central banks in Africa, and we work with central banks in the Caribbean.
What is the difference, Carmelle, between blockchain and cryptocurrency?
Great question. So the technology itself, blockchain itself, came to life as an example first, which you might hear about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an example of what you can do with blockchain. The underlying technology under Bitcoin is blockchain. And what it says is you have a book of accounting that you do not require a bank or an intermediary in the middle to say, this person gets this much and that person gets this much. It's inclusive by design. Of course, it's difficult to kind of get into because it's new, but the design of it is meant for you to have an accounting ledger that does not require an intermediary, and that people can hold money digitally and being able to do peer-to-peer transaction, person to person. And so that what that means is no one cares if you have money or not. No one cares if you live under York. No one cares if you're in Port-au-Prince or in New York. It's being able to communicate and having technology to do that peer-to-peer. And we see the power on using the technology to be able to solve some big problems around financial inclusion, around trade, around transparency and trust in some systems. And we know trust is really a big factor in a lot of economies as far as how do you bridge the gap. Cryptocurrency is an example of what you can do with blockchain. So Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency that got introduced. And since then, it's been a lot of innovation around that. So different companies and different networks and different communities create the cryptocurrencies on blockchain, and for them to be able to exchange peer-to-peer.
Now, doing something like this where you're able to help the lower income, you're bridging a gap basically. How does the central banks feel about that? How in regards to the digital currency? What are their reactions?
At first, it was very surprising to us. So I was still in IBM, and the research was coming out. We were working on a blockchain solution that was really targeting the banks, and the fintechs, thinking that they would be the first ones to kind of, jump on this. And central banks, early on, since 2014, revealed only 3 years later that they've been actually testing blockchain for the purpose of making money digital and more efficient. So it was a surprise to me, but the moment I saw it, the light bulb went on, because central banks own the money infrastructure. The dollar that you have, the paper dollar that you have in your pocket, it is printed by the central bank. And the Visa card that you have, or your deposit account that you have at the bank, that bank also relies on the central bank for proper regulation and proper settlement, and making sure that the money, when there's a plus, there's a minus somewhere, that it balances everywhere. So the central bank, you don't wake up every day thinking about them, but they are actually the infrastructure provider of the money supply in every country. So we were surprised to see that they were willing to innovate and kind of test this out. And Central Bank of Bahamas is actually the world's first central bank to issue their central bank digital currency leveraging blockchain technology. And now there's a domino effect happening in the Caribbean.
And this is the bank, the Central Bank of the Bahamas.
Correct.
We didn't start with the idea of a central bank digital currency. We focused on eliminating as many obstacles as possible for persons having access to the equivalent of a deposit account or a mobile wallet account to conduct transactions.
The Sand Dollar was launched as its pilot program in Exuma. Then we saw the launch happen in Abaco, which was great because that island had just suffered Hurricane Dorian, and that allowed some banking and some transactions to happen there.
If you live on an island that has just been hit by a major hurricane, then you may not have access to an ATM or bank branch. And the Sand Dollar can help here because it can be operated via mobile phones.
The Sand Dollar is the digital version of the Bahamian currency. It's built to be used on the mobile wallet platforms that our financial institutions are introducing.
We distribute the Sand Dollar to payment services providers for further distributions to institutions and merchants.
The amazing thing about Sand Dollar is that there are no fees or transaction costs. So if I need to pay one of my staff, I can do it right there in the moment. They receive it literally within seconds.
When COVID happened, I wanted to move away from handing and touching money from others for the safety of myself and my family. So using Sand Dollar just helped me be more safer and feel secure.
In many of our remote communities, there's very limited access to financial services on a daily basis.
It helps those unbanked members of our population who don't have access to commercial banking facilities.
As a partner, the IMF has been very helpful in bringing independent scrutiny to the process that we've undertaken and getting to this point. We are at a very early stage in the process of introducing the Sand Dollar. We need to leapfrog now and allow everybody to provide financial services through the digital channels.
It's convenient, it's digital, and I'm always on my phone anyway, so it only makes sense to have my money in my hand.
I'm excited to see where the Bahamas goes and how we flourish with the digital economy moving forward.
And now everyone, so from a Caribbean perspective, I am so happy to see kind of a domino effect happening. So Bahamas was first, the Eastern Caribbean, which makes about 6 different islands, also piloted their central bank digital currency. Jamaica just announced that they're piloting theirs this year. Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados are also looking at this. And now Haiti also did a contest for potentially their central bank digital currency. So this is exciting because at the beginning of this, I was worried that emerging markets would be behind when it comes to innovation, as has happened in the past. And we knew the US, Japan, Canada, Singapore, Europe, they were all testing this already. So I hit the ground in 2017 to go talk about this in Africa and say, look, you guys, you kind of have, this is an opportunity to own your currency situation. And when you own your currency situation, you own your sovereignty. You have power.
That's right. That's right.
restructure and reconfigure what is your payment system, what is the ecosystem, and how do you enable local firms and innovation to do that. So I've been very happy to see that in the Caribbean.
So your company has been involved with all these countries in setting them up, or what?
Not all of them, but we were part of. We are actually still working with the Central Bank of Bahamas. They launched their central bank digital currency, and we're helping them test how does that work for remittances, how does that work cross-border, regionally. There are a lot of Haitians in the Bahamas. They send money back home, or people in the Haiti send money to the Bahamas. But there's little liquidity, so you can't exchange a Bahamian dollar for a Haitian dollar, for example. That's something that's very difficult right now. And the same problem in Africa, where you have so many different currencies, but they don't have the trade routes, they don't have the balance of trade in order to facilitate a one-to-one exchange between those two currencies. So sometimes, actually most of the times, you either go from Bahamas to Canada and then back to the US, or you go from Ghana to UK to Nigeria, which is only an hour away. So it's a real problem. It's a real problem. So we've been working with the Central Bank of Bahamas to try to how to restructure that now that they have launched their central bank digital currency. And then one thing that we're also doing, as we were talking to central bank throughout this space, it's they need a way to innovate. They need a way. They're economists, they're policymakers, they're lawyers, they're tech people, and now this tech revolution is at their doorstep, and they have to do something with it because it introduces risk, and I think it's very smart for them to get at the table and help and understand what that means for the future of money. So we're also working with the Central Bank of Bahamas to help them launch an innovation platform.
Very good. What other challenges cryptocurrency and blockchain companies are facing in the emerging markets? What are the challenges you're facing?
Yeah, this is really good question. Because the infrastructure have to be there, but
correct.
There are amazing ways that at least I've been able to see even in Africa, where you could argue that you still have power surges and South Africa calls load shedding, and you still have the power outages that happen throughout the region. But Nigeria was at some point the number 3 country as far as Bitcoin transactions around the world. So you have a mechanism where you enable phone technology without you needing the internet, without you needing power, being able to do pure transaction via SIM cards, via mobile network operators, and being able to provide that service even in a low infrastructure model. It is difficult. It requires investment.
Yeah. Is that how payments are being handled? Through the phone or?
Yes, that's right. Mobile money, actually, this was a major breakthrough in Kenya back in 2007, I want to say, where Safaricom, which was a telephone company, the story goes that they were paying their employees, and their employees stayed in Nairobi, but their families were out in the provinces. So they had to travel about 8 hours on average to go bring money back home. Something that we can relate, right, in Haiti, where if you have your
definitely
friends, you kind of have to find a way to do that. It's either you give it to someone and the person doesn't actually make it there, and the money doesn't somehow, and that it's a real problem. And the thing is, the telephone company said, wait a minute, we're losing a lot of productivity on this for you to travel 8 hours and then having to come back. So they came up with a mechanism that said, how can we give you minutes? So this is where the airtime, the top-up mechanism kind of became a thing, where you convert your money into minutes, and then the agent that is actually in the province converts your minutes back into money to your family members. And they came up with a whole system to make that scalable. And now about 80% of Kenyans are banked through their mobile phones.
Through their mobile phones. Very easy, accessible, no problem.
That's right.
And it works fine.
It works fine. You walk down the street in Nairobi, every street merchant has their M-Pesa number. You take a cab, You don't have to have cash on you if you don't want to. The taxi driver give you their M-Pesa number. You're in the car, you send the money, and it's there. They see it right away.
Okay, now you're very familiar with Haiti. The changes are being made. If right now, if someone wants to receive funds, you can go to Western Union. If you're in Haiti, you can do Cash from one to the next. What is the difference with this, the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency and that system, or the system that is in Kenya?
Sure. I think the Cash system, the peer-to-peer phone system, is something that I think Digi said is actually very well known in Africa as well, as an Irish company. And that technology is very similar to what happened in Africa. So that innovation was created in a low infrastructure mechanism, in a low infrastructure environment for low infrastructure environment. So I'm not surprised that it actually made its way to Haiti and the Caribbean, actually. But the difference now between that and Bitcoin is that from an interface perspective, you can still use your phone. What people don't have an appreciation for is that although you do provide a simple mechanism for people to do that via their phone, is that behind the scenes, it is a very difficult and complicated infrastructure, because you have the phone
I'm
company,
sure.
you have the banks, you have the
Yeah.
payment provider, you have the agents, you have the central bank, you have, so you kind of start multiplying the layers, and there's a risk in that. We understand why the central banks, of course, leverage the banks to provide that kind of interoperability. The technology was the best fit for them. But now we're talking about how do you provide a blockchain mechanism that allows everyone to connect directly to the source. So you streamline that the multiple layers, because now you can have fintechs that are not banks. They don't take deposits, but they offer very innovative payment mechanisms to connect directly to the central bank and to the source of money. And that's what blockchain can do from a CBDC perspective. And then you get, from a cryptocurrency, I get really excited when I see projects and communities that come up with their own ideas and their own economics. In Haiti, we grew up, my mom always, and still does sometimes, sol. Sol is a thing, right? So
Yes.
And
Yes.
Haiti, it's susu.
People are still doing it right now.
That's right. I mean, I have stories for days. I think my mom put her on payment.
They call it sol, or I think they call it meh as well.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. And I mean, people save. That's the saving mechanism. And where I come from, right? That was the only
Yes.
saving mechanism. You didn't go to the bank. The bank was too far. Sometimes you went to the bank, and by the time you get out of the bank, somebody's robbing you.
Exactly.
That's the environment that you're in. But you also had to have the trust mechanism, right? You have to have the trust, and the trust is organic, because everybody will know if you don't pay. Everybody will know, and you will be
Yep.
no longer able or allowed to participate in SOL anymore, and the news travels really fast, right? So imagine something like that, but not with paper cash, but with a ledger that allows you to see what everybody is doing, and and you can trust that everybody put their money in, the person got their money out, and you can still use your phone to do it. So cryptocurrencies can definitely serve use cases like that are more unique, and you can back it with central bank digital currency. You can back it with other assets as well.
How can, because you're providing us with a lot of information, but how can blockchain solve the problems of financial inclusion in the Caribbean?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now is a big validation of that, because the central banks are very conservative entities. And the fact that they have gone forward and not only tested and explored and now investing into implementation is a big validation of how blockchain-enabled technology can provide that access. And what that means is that it's not to, there's a role for the banks, right? The banks have a very straightforward model as far as they want deposits to make loans, right? But if you don't have money to put in deposit and park somewhere in a bank account, you're not particularly bankable. And what blockchain and cryptocurrency can do is that they don't care if you have deposits or not. Do you want your wallet? Do you want to keep $1, or do you want to have an easier mechanism to do peer-to-peer transactions that in a trusted manner, in a clear manner, and hopefully the user experience becomes much better. So for me, I have a big focus on integrating the technology into what people use already and what's familiar to them, which is their phones. So the phone is becoming everything to people. But whether you have a smartphone, whether you have a feature phone, you should be able to get access to digital currencies.
I read somewhere where it says the U.S. GDP is 20% of the entire world's GDP.
That's right.
That's amazing. And we depend on the U.S. dollar.
You do. That's right. So 20% of the world's GDP, but 80% of trades are settled in US dollar.
Yeah.
It is a big imbalance. And the reason they can do that is really the credit and the confidence that the world has into the US dollar, or the US government specifically. That's why every time the US government, takes action on something, whether it's geopolitical aspect, whether it's economic decisions, it impacts the world. That is a problem, to be honest. So being from an emerging market, I remember the exchange rate. I was talking to my mom the other day and I had memories. The exchange rate was a daily conversation growing up. Daily conversation, because you either had US dollars that you were selling, or you needed to get US dollars because you were traveling, or you needed to pay for something.
Right.
And people, imagine, people in Haiti that don't have access, they don't get paid in US dollars, they don't, earn money in US dollars, but you still need access to US dollar.
Yep.
It's a big balance. And of course, the US does not particularly want that to change, and that's not going to change over time. But what I'm hoping that we can couple this conversation with around financial inclusion is trade. Opening new trade routes and having access to new markets is something that we can do that can address that. But it is a big dependency.
How many countries are you doing business with now?
So right now we're doing officially with 2. We are in talk with 7, and doing whether it's early stage or further along for the products that we offer. So stay tuned for more progress. But right now we are with the Bank of Bahamas and the Bank of Ghana.
Are you aware, Carmelle, that the Haitian Central Bank had a contest on the potential name of their digital currency, which is Bitcob?
Bitcob, yes.
Bitcob is what it is, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit more, or do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fall along the lines of this innovation that's happening in the region. We were hoping that when Central Bank of Bahamas, and kudos to them, really, kudos to them for sticking their necks out and taking the leap for being the world's first, and investing and staying strong and saying, yes, we're going to do this. But hopefully that was going to be an example for the others to kind of learn from. And I was very happy to see and hear about the contest. And Bitcob is so Haitian. I love it.
Yes, it is.
Haitian.
Bitcob.
Bitcob,
So,
that's it.
yeah. Now that would. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were in your conversation.
One time I'll text you and say, Jimmy Bamoti Bitcob.
No problem. No problem. At that time, I'm sure that you will be in Haiti doing your thing, and you'll probably be the one that's taking care of it.
Oh, from your lips to God's ears, my friend. We'll be competing. We're hoping to see the next step. We're waiting. I think as everybody else, but we're ready.
That's great. What advice, Carmelle, would you give to our viewers if they are interested in blockchain or the cryptocurrency? What would you tell them? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I personally think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing. The innovation around it can lead to people really kind of thinking through how to solve problems and getting ownership on how to solve that problem. So funny stories that I got to learn about blockchain when I was on maternity leave. And when I was nursing my baby, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and took some classes and got to learn about the technology. But there are a lot of resources out there. If you want to go through my path, IBM Blockchain has a lot of resources on YouTube. That's a really trusted channel to kind of look at. They have a focus on one particular protocol. So I would say, learn from that, but know that, there are classes. If you go on bitcoin.com, there are a lot of resources that really kind of tutorial that gets you to understand what Bitcoin is. And as you start to understand the spectrum, you'll get a sense that there are different protocols, different ways of actually creating a blockchain, and each protocol has their plus and minuses. So there's a lot to learn, and each protocol serve a better purpose depending on the use case that you're trying to solve for. One of the first use cases that I worked on for blockchain is how do you provide food security. So today, if you're in the US, so if you go to Walmart and there's a food outage and they say, the spinach is contaminated, then Walmart does not know which farm or which channel that this particular
came from.
So they take everything off the shelf. So then everybody has to suffer or not have salad for a week because this particular store had an outbreak. It took them on average a week to find out, to trace it back. Blockchain technology with IBM was able to trace within 5 seconds. If you scan the barcode on the box, it will tell you which farm and which distributor brought this particular package and this particular inventory. So you
in 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Because the information was entered on the blockchain from the farm all the way to the shelf at Walmart. So the moment you see the bar, you have a trusted mechanism that tells you exactly where it came from. And you say, okay, this stock or this delivery was done at 3 stores, not 20 stores. And the 20 stores are okay, we're gonna take down just 3 stores. That's
what does AI, artificial intelligence, has to do with this?
So that's also very interesting space. Artificial intelligence kind of makes it easier to process data in a much faster way than the human brain can actually process it. So when you think about the amount of information that we share online, for example, and the amount of data that can come from business activities, it's not very easy to take that data and being able to extract the right information out of it. So I'll give you an example of artificial intelligence. IBM worked on that too, where you have doctors that go to school for many, many years, but you are as good as what you learn and what you need to pass your exam. And then you become better in the field when you get exposed to more cases, but you don't get exposed to every case every day. So when you get something very rare, sometimes and you maybe watch Grey's Anatomy, it takes so much research and days to go figure out what's this thread, what is the right solution for this, what are we seeing here? So IBM was able to take a sample of medical books and ingest it into an artificial intelligence solution, and that the moment you entered some symptoms, the solution spit out to you 5 potential cases of what this symptom matches to. And you might see 2 out of the 5 in your whole life and your whole medical life, but you're like, wow, I actually remember reading this in medical school, but I never actually came across it. So you have, and within minutes, you get way much more information because artificial intelligence read all the books and remembered all the information, and it's parked somewhere in a database that can spit it out for you.
It's all about the database.
It's all about the database. My head of product would be happy to hear you say that. She breaks it down like this. It's like, this is a database. We don't need to overcomplicate this. This is a database, and what do we do with it is, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and everything else. Very good, Jimmy. It's true.
I think blockchain is going to be a very critical technology for the future development of the world. It's not only about financing. Blockchain technology is not about Bitcoins. Bitcoin is just a small function of the blockchain technology. I'm a strong believer of the blockchain technology.
This is not about Bitcoin or digital currencies or crypto assets. It's the underlying blockchain technology. Now people can trust each other and they can transact with anything from money to music to votes to their identities peer-to-peer.
Well, Bitcoin is exciting because it shows how cheap it can be. Bitcoin is better than currency in that you don't have to be physically in the same place, and of course for large transactions currency can get pretty inconvenient. The customers we're talking about aren't trying to be anonymous. They're willing to be known. So the Bitcoin technology is key, and you could add to it or you could build a similar technology where there's enough attribution that people feel comfortable. This has nothing to do with terrorism or any type of money.
I think it is working, and there will be other currencies like it that may be even better. But in the meantime, there's a big industry around Bitcoin, and people have made fortunes out of Bitcoin. Some people have lost money out of Bitcoin.
It's volatile. It's volatile.
Yeah, but it is quite volatile. But when in volatility, people can make money out of volatility.
So where I see crypto as effectively as a replacement for cash, but not as a replacement for as a primary. I do not see crypto being the primary database.
The choice, when I talk to people, I said, what do you think will be here in 2040, approximately 22 years from now? Will gold still be here? Well, it's been here since eternity.
Well,
will the dollar be here?
Right.
I don't think so. And will blockchain be here? I think so.
What's next for you, Carmelle? Right now you're in Ghana.
Yeah.
Where are you off to next?
I'm gonna head back to New York and be with my family for a little bit. As we get our shots, I'm hoping to see my mom and hug her again after a good year and a half, and for her to see her grandson for a little bit. But hopefully we're going to be Caribbean bound for a little bit, going back and forth and kind of build the business. That's our markets. I am very honored to be part of this ecosystem. There are amazing people doing great things, and I'm looking to partner and build the ecosystem around us to do that in those two markets.
And hopefully that the next time we hear about Bitcoin in Haiti, you'll have something to do with that.
We're hoping.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
We're praying. We're praying, Jimmy.
Carmelle, it was a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us tonight on our show, Tele Lakay. And I'm sure that our viewers are now better educated as far as what a blockchain and cryptocurrencies are, and the difference, and how we could possibly help them later. We're looking forward to have you back again on our show. We need to continue this conversation. It's an educational process. We need you back here.
You got it, Jimmy. You got it. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
Take care.
Yes, I
Once again, we hope that you enjoyed our show this evening. We would also like to thank Ms. Carmelle Cadet for being our guest tonight on Télé Lakay. Next week, my guest will be Burger King franchisee owner and CEO of Saint-Just Management, Mr. Wobes Saint-Just. Before we leave you tonight, I would like to remind all of our viewers that the purpose of Télé Lakay is to showcase the work that we as Haitians are doing throughout the world, our talents, our culture, our professions, and our history, and to also show to our beloved country, Haiti, the professionals that we have and who we are in the diaspora. So please, if you know someone who deserves to be recognized and that you would like to suggest to us for an interview, you may contact us, or if you are a business owner and would like for us to promote your business, you may also contact us at www.lakayenterprise.com, or you can go and visit our website, www.lakayenterprise.com. We hope to see you again next week, and please tell a friend, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you, and good night.
Na na na, eh, oh, nous t'es d'accord que c'est un moment seulement nous t'y voulons passer, que nous pas voir non aimer, just for one night, c'est pas de bagaille sérieux, yeah. Dans un programme nous t'es croisé. Mwen just mandel fon ti danse, nan plogue nou te vin sou sa, fon deplase pou fini sa. Entre nan chambre déshabillé, mwen pa son moment m'pap jam liye, li pren tèt mwen depi lè sa. Pense avel matin, midi, soir, one night stand. Hey, se kondisyon sa ki te pase, just one night stand. Avant tout bagay te komanse, pas de penser que c'est ton si bon miel que moi t'as pour le goûter. Just one night stand. Oh, one night stand.
Chérie m'senti la cassé, parce qu'on sait soirée pas cassé. Style à chercher ou pas caché. C'est comme moi vous aimez m'a chercher. Femme qui est en coulon chérie, Cocorella. Belle architecte Cocorella. Vivant tout plat, tête tout bout. Ti bouchou douce, tant pour cesse qui revient là. M'en viré corps.